Hey, good afternoon, everybody. It's Jason with JR Custom Designs. Um, I'm just going to talk a little bit while I set this up, and then I'm going to let it run. And basically, what it is, it's an old, looks like an old pier board. They got damaged in a fire. You can't really see it, but it's really charred underneath. Um, you can kind of make it out if you look. You can see around the edges of it. It's charred underneath. It's really charred up. So I'm just going to go through the process of setting everything up, and once I get it set up and burning, I'm just going to let it run. I got a time lapse going too that I'll post as well. If you have any questions um, throughout this stream, feel free to bring them up. If you just want to say hey, and I'll go ahead and get started here. So let's see, put that up there just as a reminder. So the first thing I gotta do is I gotta level it. Okay, so leveling is pretty critical, as most of you already know. And what I use is just an old bubble level. You can kind of see it there, just a little cheap from Harbor Freight, or wherever you want to get it. So I want to see if it's level. I want to find the smoothest part of the board and kind of work from there. And the way this is set up underneath, or the way it is underneath, is really, really rough. So I have to kind of use different things to try to prop it up, make it level. So like that's too level, or over level the other way. So I got to kind of just play around with it until you find that sweet spot where it's as close as you can possibly get. And you want to try to do it the same going the other way as well, from back to front. Now this could be a little tricky. As I said before, it's really charred on the back side. So, and keep in mind, I mean, right now I just have a 2-inch laser on there, or a 2-inch focus lens on there right now. Um, and ideally, I'd want to use my 4-inch for this. And the reason being is that with the 4-inch, the 4-inch gives you much more. I wouldn't say control, but it gives you more of a stable depth, because your 2-inch lens has a smaller focal distance, which is like, I want to say it's about somewhere between 3/8 and 5/8 of an inch long. That's why they say you could cut with the smaller board with the 2-inch, and then the 4-inch I think has about almost an inch long focal point. So you got a lot of buffer there, to where if there's any imperfections or inconsistencies in your material, that the engraving will still come out okay. I hope it made sense to everybody. Getting this thing level is not very easy. Just a lot of moving it around, playing around. All right. Then the next step is getting it square. So I'm using my you can see them back there, the alignment jig for the gantry, to make sure that this piece is squared up with the gantry. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and drop raise this back up, and then I'm going to move it. Alright, so now I'm square. Or as square as I can get. This one's kind of difficult because it's so out of shape and it's so weird. But anyways, so now I got it straight. Let me double check, make sure I didn't knock my level out. I'm right on the edge of being too high. The other bad thing is this thing's covered with char on the bottom. Getting it all over me. Alright, so level there. And we're close enough there. Whew! Alright. So, that out of the way. Hey, welcome everybody out there watching. Again, just going over doing a project for a customer, for her husband. He's retiring from the fire department here locally. And like I said, if well, I guess it'd help if I flipped the camera the right way. Alright. Now we're facing the right direction. Give me 1 second, I gotta take this call. Alright, I'm back. Alright, so now that I got all that straight, I lower my bed back down, I gotta do autofocus. Now, the way I do this, I mean, yeah, it's just autofocus, no big deal, right? Well, I mean, for something like this, I don't know if you can see the texture. All this is textured. It's worn, it's burnt, it's, you know, whatever. So what I try to do is I try to find a, I guess like a medium ground somewhere where I think the autofocus will be most effective on this piece. And I've kind of picked my spot. Now I'm just going to go ahead and I'm probably going to have to run this twice because I'm not sure how this is going to come out. I don't know what kind of wood this is. And being charred and being out in the weather like it has, it's going to be difficult. I guess I guess that's the easiest way to put it. Because you don't know what the density of the wood is. I mean, it looks like pine. It could be cypress. But I mean, to me, it looks like pine. Now, if it's old heart pine or something like that, then mean, you just don't know. Alright, so I'm going to have to do this the old-fashioned way, because that is not getting level. Alright. So I'm at 4 1/4, 4. That's definitely too high on the end. The problem I'm having is I can visually see now I'm at 4 1/4 and 4 1/8. So 4 1/8. 4 1/8. All right, so there. Now we're level. As I said, just trying from end to end. Whatever happens in the middle is going to happen. I mean, that's just the way it's going to be. So now I'm going to re-square this up. That's a good thing about these, the gantry alignment. It takes the guesswork out of if you're square or not. Alright, so now we're square. Let me double check my height. And alright. Alright. So that should do it. Alright, so now I'm running a 150 watt laser on this. It is a 3655 LS, and I'm going to be running this. I like to start out fast because I can always adjust it when I see the first strikes hit. So making sure that I have, I don't want to overpower it because you can't really go back from that. My shortest distance on here is 9. Actually about 9.5, but I give myself a buffer. So the piece that I'm engraving is going to be 9. So it'll sit in the middle somewhat, or as close to it as I can, to the board itself. And then the board is just over 24 inches. I say this in inches, and I know a lot of people use millimeter, I do too, but for Corel Draw, it's kind of bass-ackwards. Because I do everything in inches there, and I convert it to millimeters when it goes into ArtWorks. So it's a 35% power at 300 millimeters a second. And I think I want to do my scan at start at 0.1. This is a big project. It's not really detailed, and the texture of the wood itself is so out of place that I don't think. Sorry, I'm going through puberty. I don't think that it's really going to matter. So, without further ado, I'll go ahead and send this to the machine and get started. And then, like I said, I'll have a time lapse of this when I get done. Refocus this here. Just gonna move stuff around. Alright. When I line stuff up, I'll check the edges first to make sure my sides left to right are centered, and then I will do front to back. And this one's a little bit more difficult because of the fact that I do have this cutout right here where it's narrower than the rest of it, so really getting it straight. I mean, there's a couple things I could do, and I think now that I'm thinking about it, I'm actually going to do it. I can make the lettering a little bit bigger. So I would like to fill up as much room as I can. So I'm going to go ahead and make the Maltese crossfit here. So I made everything bigger. I will download it, see what it looks like. I always like to check out my file by hitting, after it's done downloading, by hitting file and then enter, it'll show up. Because I've caught myself a couple times doing it, or not doing it rather, and it has some not imperfections, but you put it on there and some lines will show up on it that don't look right, and I've caught myself doing that before, and not being able to catch it, or not catching it, and then that obviously turns into a problem. But anyways, here we go. Got everything set, origin set, power, everything. Here we go. So now we'll just sit back and enjoy the show. Make sure I didn't do independent scan. Alright, so that's burning pretty deep. Looks pretty good. We'll go ahead and close the lid here. Try to find a lighting situation that works. There we go. It's not ideal, but oh my god, that stuff stinks. Whew. I don't know if that's good to be breathing in or not, but whew. That is a strong smell. Anyways, I'm going to leave this running. I'm going to hop off. I see some chat on there. I'll hop in, maybe come back on, talk a little bit more. But otherwise, enjoy the show, so to speak. And I'll check back with you when it's done. And I will upload the time lapse. I know it kind of sucks. I ran it backwards. I should be running from the bottom to the top. But being the shape of this board and everything, I didn't want to risk messing something up. So, anyways, I'll check back later. Enjoy. If you have any questions, please feel free to ask, comments. Doesn't matter. It's fine. Just let me know. Hey Glenn, man, what's up? Hey, if you can hear me, let me know. Does this come out fuzzy to you? On my end, I'm looking and it looks kind of fuzzy, so I'm not sure. But I know on my recording end it looks good. So I'm not sure what's going on. Kit, this is a old burnt piece of pier decking or something. It looks like it is a pillar or something like that. That was brought to me for a husband that's retiring. He's a firefighter, so the the wife thought it'd be kind of neat to have an old burnt piece of wood with some stuff on it for his retirement and kind of tie everything in together. So that's what this is. Okay, good. It might the fuzziness might be on my end because I'm using two huge monitors, um, and one of them's a crappy TV or an old TV. It's 720, and I'm running at 1080p. So that's probably why. Then I just want to make sure. Thank you, Kit. Um, but yeah, so that's the I guess the backstory kind of on this piece is just the the wife wanted to just kind of tie everything in together, and she found this washed up on the beach um, here in Jacksonville, Florida, and she thought it was kind of fitting that it'd be part of his retirement, which I think is pretty cool. Um, so now, basically, just making her idea become a reality, so to speak, and hopefully it turns out good. I don't know how it's going to turn out, and mainly I don't know because uh, I don't know what kind of wood it is. That's the biggest question of this whole deal is, you know, what kind of wood is it? So I'm just kind of hoping that I made the right call with the settings that I'm using, and kind of see how it goes. That's really all I can do. And then I'm working on in the background. I got another project I'm working on. Um, the hardest part about this project is there really are no designs. I mean, there are, but you have to pay an exorbitant amount of money for them. But it's military warfare devices. Uh, I got all of them but one, and the but one is the one that's kicking my butt, and that's the subsurface. Um, just a word of caution: if you're gonna do stuff like this, um, again, I don't know. I mean, I got my ventilation going and everything, um, but I will say that this doesn't smell like normal wood. So just be cautious when you're doing stuff like this because you don't know what kind of chemicals or anything that have been on this wood or on the material that you're using. I can only assume that back when this was brand new, however long ago that was, that it was pressure treated, which is probably kind of what the smell is that I'm smelling from it right now. Um, so just be cautious of what you're doing and how you're ventilating. Make sure you got good ventilation is of the utmost importance. Um, I could still smell it pretty strong, which tells me that somewhere along the line I've got a loose connection in my exhaust. Not quite sure where it's at, or maybe I'm just smelling residual from when I started it off with the lid open. I'm not sure. But if anybody out there is watching and you guys have done military warfare devices like subsurface, sea surface, or air crew or anything like that, I need the sub dolphin pin. I'm trying to work on that right now, um, and I'm having decent luck. But it's always better if you can get one that's already been done. Been messing with this. I wouldn't say I'm on a tight deadline, but it definitely helps if someone's already got it done. Be much appreciated. Because what I've got is not the best looking. I'll have to do some tests on it. I think I pretty much got it, but yeah, I'm gonna do some. I'll do some testing before I actually do it. Um, all right, I'm gonna go silent again because I don't want anybody hearing Normally I wouldn't want to see all this burning on the wood, um, but given kind of the backstory of this and what it is, who it's for, um, I might consider leaving a lot of that on there. Obviously, it's kind of hard to see anything right now, um, but once it's done, I'll probably just brush or blow off the residue, and might just go with what's left over. I think it might be all right. Just given given the like I said, the history of this, or what it is, what it's about, who it's for, I think it might actually turn out quite nice. I just got done doing a couple Bibles for a lady, and of course, on the phone, the questions I ask is it leather? Is it fake leather? Is it thick? Is it thin? And of course, wherever she got them from, said they were leather, which I guess in reality they are, but uh, very, 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 very thin leather. And and so once I got them in there and I started to burn them, I could quickly tell that they were nowhere near being leather at all. Because once I broke the surface, you could see the webbing of the fabric. So it was more of like a leatherette kind of material, um, but it wasn't dense like leatherette is. So when I engraved it off, it left like a mesh look. And I say this because when you're getting something from somebody and you're not sure how it's going to react or what it's going to do, um, the customer needs to be well aware that it may or may not turn out the way you're anticipating or they're anticipating. So I made it abundantly clear to this lady that I give no guarantee, and kind of whatever happens happens. And repeatedly told her this. That way, yeah, she can come back and say, "Oh, I don't like it. I'm not paying for it." Um, but in all reality, if she doesn't pay for it, then you keep the materials. I mean, it's really that simple. Um, you know, but then again, you got to look at, okay, well, is this a fight that I want to pick? Do I really want to get upset and lose, potential business um, from this person or from the people that he or she may know? Uh, so it's one of those things, realistically, it took me, I think, between the two, about 10 minutes, start to finish, doing both of them. That's setting them up, taking them down, setting up the other one, taking it down, and cleaning them up. Maybe 10 minutes. Is 10 minutes of my time really worth making someone unhappy to the point where they might, you know, go out and give you a bad review or talk poorly about you among their peers, friends, family? Um, I don't know. That's one of the decisions you got to make. In this case, if she's not happy with it, and you got to kind of feel out your customer whether they're unhappy because it didn't turn out, or if they're unhappy because it didn't turn out the way they wanted. Because there is a difference, and some people treat it differently. I've had customers come in here, and I could just tell immediately, without even saying any words, I could tell right away that this guy in particular was not happy. But again, it was another one of those situations where he brought me a material that I was not familiar with. Um, which basically, anytime someone brings me something, whether I'm familiar with it or not, what kind of wood it is, or You know, it doesn't matter. If someone brings me material, I conduct myself as if I have no clue about that material. Because in this instance, the guy, he's like, yeah, I want this done. I let him know. I said, because it was pine and spruce. It's one of them butcher block prefab boards that you get from Home Depot or Lowe's. So it's comprised of spruce and pine. And so I let the guy know. I said, I'm not familiar with this. I don't know exactly how it's going to turn out. I don't know how dark it's going to be. I don't know how light it's going to be. I said, chances are it's probably going to be light because it is pine or spruce, which is the same type material. And he's like, okay, okay, I understand. And so when he showed up to pick it up, I immediately saw a look on his face, and he was not happy. It wasn't an angry happy, but it was unhappy. And after finally getting him to talk about it, he was like, I'm not unhappy with the work because the work looks great. He said, I'm unhappy because it didn't turn out the way I had hoped it would, even though you said it wouldn't. It probably wouldn't. Um, so in that essence, could I have done something different? Yes, I could have masked off the whole board, but this board was 2 foot by 4 foot, and it was engraved. The whole thing was engraved with some Lord of the Rings stuff for a wedding. It's actually on my Facebook page, JER Custom Designs, um, and he wasn't that happy with it. But when I took it home, and as most of you know, if you're doing um, if you're doing wood, when you engrave something, um, especially like pine or oak or cypress, anything like that that has a lot of sap in it, you're going to see a change of color. Now with pine, generally when you engrave pine, it's going to look barely noticeable other than the depth at which you burned it. Um, Sometimes pine, like a good quality pine, will be like a dark brown, light to dark brown. Very rarely will it be black. But you know, if you're unsure of what you're working with and you have the option available, mask it off and then hit it with some spray paint. Or they got what's called laser dark. If you shop with JDS, they got stuff that's called laser dark. And and what it does is it basically just it darkens up the spot. It's not meant to completely fill it, although you could try. But it's just meant to put a haze over the impression to give it some shadow and depth and a little bit more darkness. So yes, could I have done that? Absolutely. Um, would it have been? Would it have turned out all right? Who knows? But anyways, after the guy got it, he took it home and he got it stained. And once he stained it, everything popped. One because of the tannin and the pine, the sap, the chemicals. Uh, Obviously, the burnt part showed up better than the stained board itself. Um, Another trick I like to use is vinegar. Um, like if you've seen some of the things like the the decanter box video that I posted, um, I use vinegar for that. Now the vinegar in and of itself can work, um, but vinegar in and of itself is not that good at um, is not that good at bringing out the tannin. Um, what it will do is, hold on a second. just had an appointment I was supposed to make, but I got this thing going on. But anyways, the vinegar reacts with the tannin and gives it some color. Now, what I like to do is I'll take that same vinegar and in an old Tupperware container, I'll pour about halfway full, the little tiny ones, not the big ones, the medium size, I guess you would call it. I'll pour about half that level of vinegar, and I'll use steel wool. I'll use uh, old nails. Make sure it doesn't have the coating on it, or if it does, sand off the coating so it exposes the metal. Um, I've used toothpaste. I've used um, what else? Like a charred wood or oak. Um, there's so many different things you can do. But putting those in a container, Todd, this is an old burnt piece of pier board or dock board that I'm doing for a lady for her husband's retirement from the fire department. So it kind of ties all this stuff in together, burnt wood, memory, whatever. It's too really heavy, so I don't know if they're gonna hang it off the wall. I guess I'm gonna go ahead and type because people are leaving here before I can answer them. Yeah. Anyway, so I use the vinegar for that. You can use Drano. You can use diluted, of course. You don't want to use full strength. Um, let's see what else. You can use muriatic acid. You can use sulfuric acid, and just be cautious when you use that stuff because of the fumes. Make sure you have chemical resistant gloves on so it doesn't melt them. Um, anything with an acid base, basically, you can use and mix it with other things. Like uh, the table that I did on here um, that I made that's trimmed out with some crown molding and stuff. That one was actually all done with vinegar and with steel wool and nails. Uh, and at first, it kind of threw me off, caught me off guard, and I'm sure it will you too, or has if you've done it. Um, but when you put it on the wood, especially pine, it will physically turn and visually turn to rust. And the longer you let it sit, the darker it'll get. And then what you do is with the rust already on it, you can apply just straight vinegar and it will increase the aging of process of it. Um, now I used in the centerpiece that was actually engraved on that table, there was pecan, which is the center, and it turned like a grayish black color. And then you have uh, maple, which turned I don't remember off the top of my head, but it was a little bit darker. So you can see the differences that the same material has on the different types of wood. Uh, the pine, like I said, the pine had the rust color, and it looked. I was kind of worried because it was really bright orange. Because that's the first time I'd use it on pine. Usually I'll use it on oak or pecan or um, maple or something like that. That's the first time I've used it on pine, and it kind of threw me for a loop a little bit. Uh, so once I got it on there, what I did is I did a test piece, of course, before I did anything, um, and I tested it on one piece without sanding, and it was a deep, rich color, almost like a I don't know, an oak stain or something, maybe a maple or walnut stain. And then the other piece, I sanded it, and that's the one that you see in the video that I produced. I like the sanded a lot better. It was more of a rich brown tan color than it was more red, which it would have been if I would have left the oxidation on there. And I was taking a gamble with the maple and the pecan because I wasn't quite sure how it was going to turn out. Of course, you're never really going to know how it turns out until it turns out. Because all wood acts differently. If you got a piece of, let's say you have an old piece of a maple, and then you have a newer piece of maple, which is just a piece that grew quick, kind of like they do pine, because they have it soft maple, hard maple. Hard maples is is more aged. Soft maple is more like your young tree, and take the difference and you do the same thing to them, they're going to turn out totally different, uh, more than likely. All right. So, anyways, um, yeah. So there's all kinds of different stuff you can do to get different looks out of the wood besides stain. I like stains, but stains can obviously do. Uh, Not all stains can do what actual, I call them old techniques, which is what they are. I mean, it's people did before they had stains. Um, As you can also, um, I've done I've done baking soda and vinegar, where you take the wood, you hose it down with water, or spritz it, just get it damp, and then you take baking soda, sprinkle it across, and rub it in. Let it sit for a little bit, and then go over it with vinegar. Depending on what you're doing, sometimes it'll give it a whitewashed look, uh, and if it's a lighter wood, and if it's a darker wood, it's kind of like an ashy gray. Sometimes it just depends um, on how much baking soda you use, how well it penetrated when you soak or wet the wood, how well it penetrated into the wood. Um, so there's several variables. I know right now it looks like a dark black blob. Um, and like I said, I should have went from the bottom to the top for this. Um, Usually bottom to the top works better. I don't have my secondary air collar on there, so it's not blowing away all the smoke and soot like it would normally do. Um, Mainly because I have the lens mounted on the bottom of uh, my tube, so it's too far away from the material for the collar to be functional. And then what I'm going to do, uh, with this one is done, because as far as I know, it's going to be an inside piece. Um, I'm hoping it doesn't go outside because I'm not going to treat it as such. Normally, if it was gonna be an outside piece, like maybe something sitting in a garden, propped up sitting in a garden, it's gonna be exposed to weather or the ground or whatever, I would use a spar urethane. Um, the spar urethane is kind of like realistically, it's almost like a rubberized sealer, so to speak. It's flexible, so for wood, indoors, outdoors, it allows for expansion and contraction as the temperatures change. Um, where it's not viscous, but it's flexible enough to shrink and stretch with the wood without causing cracks. Typically, with spar urethane, if anything's going to happen, it's going to peel off uh, in pieces. Over time, it might. Now, if you're using poly or polyacrylic or anything like that, which is meant for indoors, if you used it and it goes outside, what what's going to happen is poly, most of it is not UV protectant, which spar urethane is. Um, so with it not being UV protectant, one, it's going to probably turn yellow, which is not going to look pretty. Uh, and two, once it is out in the elements and you got expansion and contraction, what's going to happen is you're going to get cracks or uh, delamination, delamination, if you will, or bubbles, or it'll turn like a milky color because moisture will get underneath it and cause it to change colors, or not change colors, but allow it to seep in and kind of separate it from the wood. So if you have a piece that you might think that would be outdoors, just make sure you ask the customer, hey, where's this gonna, what's the climate it's gonna be in? Is it gonna be indoors, outdoors? Is it gonna see wear and tear? Like someone could put this and turn it into a coffee table, or not a coffee table, but an end table, or a centerpiece on a coffee table. Who knows? Um, but those kind of things you want to know going into it. And she was talking about hanging this on the wall or setting it up in an office. So, without even asking, pretty much saying it's going to be inside. I don't know where she's going to hang it when she gets it because this thing is heavy. It probably weighs 20 pounds by itself. Um, so I mean, it's not a light piece of wood, and I'm not even going to fashion any kind of hanging device. Normally, if someone's going to hang something on a wall, I will provide the means to hang it. But in this case, I'm not going to do that because I'm not going to be responsible for if it falls, breaks something, hurts somebody, or whatever. So I'm leaving it completely up to the customer what they want to do when they get it home. But myself, as an individual and or business owner, I'm not going to take that liability. I'll leave that on the hands of. Hey Chad, what's going on? Thanks for joining. Um, I'm gonna leave that up to the owner. That way, uh, I am completely out of the loop on what happens to it after it leaves my shop, and that's the way I prefer it in a case like this. I'm gonna go ahead and share this to my page too. I didn't share it, but I figure might as well make everybody suffer. But anyways, so yeah, like I was saying. So yeah, I'm not going to take that responsibility. Um, that'll all be on the onus of the whoever's on the receiving end of this. Um, let them deal with it. And again, like I said, just make sure you know what you're looking at when you're burning wood, uh, because you don't know where it's been. If it's exposed to chemicals, um, who knows? Make sure it's well ventilated, which I think it's a 400 CFM extractor uh, that I'm looking to actually. I'm gonna up it up to about around 1,000 CFM. Because when I'm done with this and open the lid, I want to be able to have a clean. I want to have a clean burn, or not clean burn, but I want to have a clean cabinet. I don't want smoke pouring out of it. I want to make sure that it's ventilated enough to where it's going to pull it all out. Deborah K. I know who that is. I figured I'd bring my page along with on the ride with this one. Uh, Again, as pinned to the board because everybody, several people were asking and everything. This is just an old piece of what seems to be uh, wood from an old pier or dock of some sort that was washed up on the beach here in Florida, and the lady thought it would be nice to have it as a retirement gift for her husband to have it engraved. Seeing as how obviously he's a fireman. If you look at the bottom edge of the board, some of it's missing. It's charred, burnt. The underside of it's completely charred and burnt. Now, that could have been from a fire on a pier or whatever. Uh, but this particular piece has nice clean cuts on the end, and it's really small. So I can't imagine what it would be other than maybe we had a few years back a hurricane took out Jacksonville Pier or part of it, and maybe this was a piece that they cut off that landed in the water and they didn't pull out of the water. Who knows? And someone used it as a bonfire or piece of bonfire wood. Who knows? Um, I don't know what the backstory is on it, but I mean it's intriguing. A lady called me up and asked me if I'd be interested in doing this for her, and I I don't tend to turn anything away, um, mainly because I like the challenge and I like the experience of doing it because not a lot of people where I'm at, or even in the state. I mean, I've had people from Key West to northern Georgia and South Carolina uh, have stuff sent to me, or they bring it down to me because nobody's willing to take the risk, you know. Um, and I'm not gonna lie, it is nerve wracking to do sometimes. You're trying to do something for somebody. You're not exactly sure how it's gonna turn out, um, but you don't really want to say no. Uh, so the only next best thing to do is to you know do your best, give it a shot, see what happens. The worst that could happen is it doesn't turn out all right. And I've already let the customer know. I said, if this doesn't turn out quite right, I cannot guarantee it. I will do the best that I can, and she's okay with that, or at least she was when she dropped it off, and I told her. Um, but if you're looking to have anything engraved, this is aside from the boss side of things, from my page, but And if anybody's looking to have anything done, like and share the page, JER Custom Designs. Uh, that's where you can find my main page. Of course, I've got this page too, but it's focused on just doing laser work. See what I can do for you. If there's anything that I can do, let me know, and I'll be happy to help. As a matter of fact, I just did a couple Bibles this morning um, for a lady. I'm doing this. Then later, later today, or even tomorrow. Sorry, you can see my time-lapse camera there. Later today or tomorrow, I'm going to actually be doing some axes, where I'm doing the wooden handle, and I will be doing the metal head as well. Because I've got both lasers, I can do it. If you have uh, weapons that you want to have done that are made of hardened steel or polymers, and you want designs or whatever on it, I could do those as well. But if this is something that interests you, or if you want to do it, it's fun as a hobby. It really kind of everything I do kind of started out as a hobby, um, out of necessity, I guess. And I just started messing with it, and it has become what it's become. Uh, I do custom woodwork. That was my main. That's what I started with. That was my main focus. Um, but I've since I do all kinds of laser engraving. I do embroidery and vinyl graphics, sublimation, 3D printing. Uh, pretty much anything that has design related aspects to it, except for metal. I don't do metal yet. Um, but basically anything that has any design aspect, and everything kind of plays into itself. The woodwork, like a lot of the stuff on my page, a lot of stuff I make. I make it, I engrave it, or what have you. Um, so I mean, it's an all-around business. Everything's under one roof. Everything's in this one shop. So it's easy to kind of transition back and forth and do multiple things like that. But anyways, enough of my rambling. If you have any questions, let me know. I'm gonna go silent here for a little bit while I take care of a couple things. Okay, and I'm back. So now it is done. So I'm gonna give it a second for the fumes to clear. I'm gonna clear the head out of the way. Let the fumes clear out. Then I'm gonna open it up, take a look, see what we got. Hopefully it turned out all right. Unfortunately, the way this thing burned, um, it's really hard to see anything at this angle. Um, but I'll take it out. I'm gonna grab some gloves. I don't want to get soot all over my hands. When I first started doing this, I used to never wear gloves, and because it was always an expense that I didn't want to have to deal with. But when doing this stuff, not knowing what you're going to get into, it yeah, that really stinks. Not knowing what you're getting into and the chemicals that I use on a daily basis, it's kind of a no-brainer, I guess you could say. As far as wearing gloves, I mean, I think a box of these costs like $10, and for my big old meat hooks, I think there's only like 50 pair in a box, whereas the smaller ones I think are like 100 or whatever they are. I don't know, but it's definitely worth it if you're working with a lot of stains, sealers, things like that, to make sure that you have some sort of protection. Like I said, I used to be really stubborn about it, and I wouldn't really use anything. So what I'm going to do when I'm done with this is I'm going to physically take it outside and I'm going to hose it down. And because I mean this thing's probably spent its life in the water, so a little bit's not going to hurt it. A little bit more is not going to hurt it. So I will just take a camera. I'm going to start with the live feed. Go ahead and take the live feed. Take the camera and actually bear with me a second. Pull it up so I can see what I'm doing here. Alright. So now you're seeing the board firsthand. I went and brushed everything off of it. It turned out pretty good. Now I just gotta go wash off all this soot. And like I said, I'm probably gonna leave the dark edges. I mean, I think it's deep enough. I think I'm gonna leave the charred edges. Normally, like on a finished piece, I would not leave the charred remains anywhere, just because I don't want to do the time lapse here. So everybody can see how it looks. And the letters inside the cross aren't showing up that well. Just because they haven't been cleaned off yet. Alright. Well, that's it for this video. If you'd like what you see, check it out on YouTube. Like, share, follow, subscribe, ring the bell, get notifications when I do new videos. If you have any content for future videos, please let me know what you'd like to see, and I will do my best to come up with something to provide that for you. Other than that, that is pretty much it for today. I got some other stuff to do, but I'm going to be obviously doing that offline. If you're looking for any tools or jigs for your laser, check out Tools and Jigs for Boss Lasers on Facebook. Check out the website jarcustomdesigns.com, or contact me jarcustomdesigns@gmail.com. And until then, we'll see you next time. Thanks everybody for watching. Laser like a boss.